Now that you've had a couple days to look back on the Galaxy game, does it still feel like 2 points dropped, or do you feel a little more positive about
No, I feel really positive about that and the whole situation that we find ourselves in. I think I think we've started really well when it comes to performances, when it comes to the numbers that sit behind those performances, the way the group feels about itself in terms of the depth that we were able to show on Saturday with five starters missing, but also the way in which the team's playing and the things that make the team competitive. And again, I've made this point a couple of times, but I'm sure if you're an opposition coach watching us in the coming weeks, then you're looking at a team that is it's very strong defensively. It's difficult to break down. It doesn't give away many clean-cut chances over the course of 90 minutes. And I think on Saturday we added to being a threat on set plays, being a threat on the counter-attack, being a threat in general play, and I felt like the general play, particularly in the second half, was of a really high level. And I'd been almost banking on the fact that once we had more home games, once we got out of the sort of awkward stretch of consecutive away games and the almost the feel that gives you as a team when you go away and play in a stadium with no fans and you really have to grind results out, which we do really well. I was banking on being able to use that home energy and atmosphere and the crowd and that rhythm that gives you to that effect, and I felt like we did that really well on Saturday, and I felt like that was probably our most complete performance in that sense.
There were a couple of sort of stretches in the second half where you played it out of the back, and then the team's made about 12 passes and it's turned into a shot. You ready to just sort of give up on going long and getting second balls?
No, I mean we've always talked internally about making sure we strike that balance well, and I think if you look at those moments, then they're moments where it's very clear that we have an advantage in playing short. We have numbers close to the ball. The opposition's pressure isn't particularly good, and we're able to use those situations to our advantage in a way that we haven't so far. And I think we've always wanted to strike the balance between attacking quick, having a really high rhythm on the ball, and not turning down opportunities to use the pace that we have on the last line, with having enough passes to keep the team connected and be more of a threat in organised play, which of course we were on Saturday. But I think again, if you were to look at the game back, we also had some very good moments where we used direct play to good effect. We were really well set to pick second balls up, really well set to win that sort of game within the game in the middle of the pitch, and we've got to find the balance well between those two, what can be pretty contrasting ways of looking at things. But I think the second half on Saturday was a really good example of us at our best in both senses.
Given sort of what happened last summer, how do you look at the performance of the guys who came in last weekend?
Yeah, we were very conscious of making sure that we thought about the points at which we were going to be missing internationals in real detail with real purpose, and I was pleased that on Saturday we quite literally took five starters away from the group and were able to put in a really competitive performance, and in some senses one of the better performances of the year. So I said to the players this morning, I think there were a few pats on the back. I think Jefferson had a big pat on the back for following up what was a difficult day at Kansas for him with a really good performance. Nico obviously came in for his first start, and I think he did really, really well. So I think when you add that to the fact that Owen was able to come on in difficult circumstances, and Sam Shishoa came on and contributed really well, and then when you add the five players we were missing to that, I think that's a really healthy picture. So in terms of sort of raising the floor of the group and making sure we got a good depth and the coaching staff are comfortable with that, I think we've done a really good job.
How much, I mean, obviously it's never good to send guys away for internationals, but some of them have performed really well. Tani scored, Boxy's team's qualified for the World Cup. Does that sort of help bring the group back when you bring it back?
It does, and I made that point this morning, and certainly will do when Boxy and Robin get back. That I think we've always taken the stance that what is good for the group is good for the individuals, and good for the individuals is good for the group. So someone like Tani, who in my time here has emerged as a player with some weight now at international level, the same for Carlos. Boxy and New Zealand have obviously done something that they've not done in a long while, and I know that will mean a lot to him and the country. And Dane's performed really solidly, and Robin got away with a draw yesterday. So I feel like it's one of those international breaks where largely you're looking at it very positively, and hopefully they come back with a real sense of energy, enthusiasm, and definitely in someone like Tani's case, I think it just gives him that real strong sense of self at that level, which is so important.
Do you feel like you have some confidence now for June when you're going to lose some guys again?
Yeah, definitely, and we will think about that period really strategically, and I think again to mention someone like Alec, he will have taken a lot of confidence from that game on Saturday. He performed really incredibly, and I think going into that period, it's important that players that maybe will suffer for a lack of minutes between now and then feel like they've got something to look back on. And Alec is one of those guys, and I will definitely take the stance in the coming weeks and months of trying to use the squad as often as possible with those games in mind, and making sure that we, as I've said often in these interviews, have, say, between 18 and 21 players that feel really connected to what we're doing. And it's not always easy. It's not as straightforward as setting out to do that and it taking care of itself, because it can only extend so far that without you sacrificing rhythm and consistency. But I think typically we've struck the balance pretty well, and over the course of the coming weeks we will certainly look to the second team as well for providing our guys with minutes and making sure that we get that sense of mobility between the two groups. So hopefully that amounts to a picture in June where we feel that we've at least got enough cover to feel comfortable.
I was looking at the expected goals numbers, and they have Minnesota right now as the top team in the league. Are the numbers that you sort of look at as well sort of telling me the same thing?
Yeah, they are, and it's we sort of try and dig a couple of layers deeper than that as well when it comes to some of the things that we value and see as being crucial to us being competitive. And I think if you look at those numbers, we're in a really good place. We give away very few chances. We create a lot of chances in a lot of different ways, and I think. Yeah, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror when it comes to closing the last two games out. But I think when it comes to just the raw data, we've been unfortunate when it comes to the balance of the last two games in particular. So I think if you trust that over the course of a season, if we can continue to push the group in the way that we do, and the level of performance carries, that we trust that will level itself out. And I think we could not unfairly be sat here probably with 11 or 12 points pretty comfortably, and I don't think anyone would question that in any way. So I'm trying to strike that balance when I talk to the group between giving them the pat on the back for those underlying numbers and the performances and the things that we're doing really well, but also there has to be an element of us being self-critical, because we should be in a better position in the table than we are. But I would say generally we're positive, and there are a lot of promising signs.
How many games do you feel like the team has to get under its belt before you can start saying, yeah, this team might be pretty good, might be pretty special?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we look after probably 10, 12 games. I feel like in the first 5 games you play 3 of them away from home, and then suddenly you've got 5 players missing for the 5th, and it doesn't feel like you've had loads and loads of rhythm. But I think between now and the summer months we can really get our heads down, and I said that to the group this morning, we've got to start converting good performances and lots of promise into consecutive wins to show that we can sit at the top of the table and stay at the top of the table. And I think at the moment we're just hovering in that position where, yeah, conceivably it could go either way, but I feel pretty comfortable with the way we've performed so far, and the fact that what we've done up until this point has been based upon really solid principles. I don't look at anything we've done and think it's shaky or in the balance and question whether we can reproduce it week on week. I think what we're doing at the moment we can produce fairly regularly, and we've obviously got some exciting points of reference in that group. We've got the Tani and Kelvin combination to see through pretty consistently, I would hope, and we've got players that are emerging, Morris as an example, Anthony, who's done really well, and others that I think can find new levels to their performance. So I would say it amounts to a good picture, and it's for us to make sure it continues.
What's the update on Sani Dotson?
Yeah, he'll have surgery tomorrow. So I think until the surgery is complete, it's difficult to say whether it will be how many months it will be, basically. So I think based on what I've heard this morning, there could be a pretty stark difference between one outcome and another. So we're obviously hoping for the shorter time frame for sure. And it's a really disappointing one, and everyone's gutted for Hassani in the sense that he started the season so well. He's such a reliable guy, such an important part of what we do. So I think everyone will have their fingers crossed overnight, and I'm sure he'll have the mentality either way to deal with it, because he's that sort of character.
Sure. Whose role probably changes the most with Hassani being missed for an extended period?
I don't think anyone's role changes so much, but I would say we're obviously rotating pretty cleanly between 4 players, and with Owen supporting that so far in terms of minutes. And I think then that obviously has a knock-on effect, and of course a silver lining for a couple of players that are playing more supporting roles at the moment is that there will be players that will need to step up and fill those absences. So we've obviously got a number of options in the middle when it comes to the people who play there by trade in Owen and Hoyun and Robin, who we've obviously missed on Saturday. But then you've also got Carlos Harvey, who is typically a midfield player by trade, Joe Rosales, who I think started his time here. So we're not short of options. It would just be a case of making some subtle tweaks to how the rest of the team looks, I suppose.
How, I think it's funny you mentioned Robin because no matter what position he goes out, it seems like, oh, we could just put
Yeah,
Robin
Robin,
back.
yeah.
It must be nice having a guy like that.
Yeah.
You can sort of, oh, we can play him as central midfielder, forward.
Yeah, no, I think he's such a rare talent in that sense, Robin, because he's got both athletic attributes, the competitiveness and mentality, the sort of game intelligence and the technical attributes to play in a lot of different positions. And there's not many players that you could say very easily could play your number 6 as a single number 6, but could also probably play as a single number 9, as well as the variety of other things he could do. So I think someone like him is just so crucial for us. And as I said last year a little bit, we want to make sure that he's not a victim of that, Robin, to an extent, and that as often as possible, because he's one of our stronger players, our best contributors, we want to make sure that he's in his best position more often than not. So I wouldn't anticipate this having too negative a knock-on effect on him anyway.
All right, first question. When you scored against the U.S., did you think about going to celebrate with Thierry Henry?
Oh, I was actually going to do a celebration because that's my favorite player ever. So, but then I realized the goal wasn't to the caliber of Thierry Henry, so I tried to just keep it a little bit more subdued. But if we had been on that other side, I would have at least walked by for a high five.
Did it feel sort of like a weight off your shoulders to get the first one for Canada?
For sure. I think just being able to breathe a little bit better now that I've gone it out the way, and I think it just sets me up perfectly for everything that's to come in the future.
You know, the narrative is always that Canada really wants to beat the United States being on the inside. Is that how it feels on the inside as well?
Absolutely. I mean, you saw how it was when we played them in hockey. I think we came into the game with that exact same mindset. And, you know, us being this close to each other and we can't be naive with everything going on around in the world, especially with Canada and the U.S. It definitely added a little bit more to it as well. So, yeah, we were very excited for the game.
You know, you've got a coach in Jesse March that's an American, but also crazy enough to get himself sent off over a call. As a player, does it mean more to have a coach that's that involved in the game?
I think it's always good when a coach shows that they care more, and, you know, he gets sent off standing up for us, and we knew that because we felt hard done by a couple calls that didn't go our way in the tournament. So to have him be able to do that for us, you know, to still come out with the win as well, I think it just bodes well for all of us. And, I mean, we support him the same way he supports us.
A lot of people sort of disillusioned with the way the U.S. national team played this week. Do you want to make a case for them to start being Canadian fans instead?
Yeah, we'll take everybody. You know, the thing about Canada that might be a little bit different from the U.S., we're welcoming everybody. Everybody can be Canadian. Everyone can support Canada. We got the Gold Cup coming up. We'd love your fans. We got the World Cup next year in Canada and the U.S. We'll take U.S. fans there as well.
In terms of your confidence level coming back to Minnesota, does it help to have a good stint with the national team and then bring you back into Minnesota?
Definitely. I think I have a really good group over at the national team, so it's always a week or 10 days that I look forward to, and I think, you know, this was a good stretch being able to contribute as well and get a big win against the U.S. So definitely going to take that into the game this weekend for sure.
We saw Asani sort of limp off last week. Have you talked to him? How's he doing?
Yeah, I think for him it's probably still processing things a little bit, but, you know, that's one of my closest friends, so it's tough for me for sure. I know how tough it is for him and his family, and, you know, it sucks that a lot of times I don't think he's gotten the credit that he deserves from whether it's the club or from fans or whatever it is. So it hurts me a little bit that he's gone down the way he has, but I know him. He's a really strong guy, and I know he'll bounce back from it.